Today is the 5th day of the July 94 7-day retreat in Springwater. What has been coming up throughout this retreat, and we have touched upon it in every talk, is what is this me? What is ego or the self, the I? And not abstractly, we could all engage in abstract discussion of what the ego is. This is what is happening in many schools of psychology, which define ego in different ways. This is not what this talk is about. Is it possible, can we, in looking at this morning, try to get at it more directly as it is experienced? Get out of the theoretical, abstract, intellectual level into the direct experiential. Because this is where maybe the deepest anchorage of this concept is lodged. We experience ourselves, or think we experience ourselves as me, as separate, in individuality. We have to use words to talk about it, but the words are not just floating like clouds nowhere. We're using words to describe something that is directly sensed or experienced by human beings like you and me. Mostly when thinking is going on, but even without thinking on a non-verbal memory level, there is this continuity of memory about being me, separate, an entity, independent of others. Isn't there? Can we take lots of pauses here to really get a feel of that? If it's not there, then we can still look at it, because it is so for human beings. Because we can remember, maybe last moment it was there, or yesterday, this morning. It's probably there for most of us, most of the time. This sense of being me, the doer, the thinker, the experiencer. We say, I am experiencing the cool air of the fan, and saying so, it follows logically as well as experimentally that there is a me who experiences the air, even though there may be other people who are experiencing it too. I hope so. if we weren't saying, I am feeling the cool air, or I am hearing the airplane, there was just listening without verbalization, then what is there? Listening right now, the sound of the fan, the airplane, breathing, exhaling, sensations from sitting, from bending knees, hands touching, sensations of skin on skin, feeling of joints, birds singing, and not saying I'm hearing it, just what's there. Then who is hearing it? Who is experiencing it? Because already with this question, who is experiencing it? The brain says, does it not? I am. It's me who is experiencing. And are we satisfied with this answer? That it is me? If we are, we will not ask any further. But we can wonder, what is this me that says I'm experiencing it? Is there any such entity beyond the language, the habitual way of putting it, the memory of always having spoken, as far as I can remember, of me and mine? It has tremendously strong impact and reinforcement on the sense of separate self, the way we've always talked about ourselves and been talked to by others. But one will say, even if I don't think I am experiencing the fan, or I am hearing the birds, there is this body, and what else is this body but me? It's my body. Only I am experiencing the sensations right now that take place in this body. It's one of the strongest arguments people use. It seems to be a hurdle for some they don't want to or can get over. At least they think they can. Often it's said, if I use a pin and prick my thigh, you don't feel it. I used to think about this a lot too, because it was a problem, not just to solve it as a puzzle, a riddle, which is put to us in spiritual traditions if we start training. This who am I is one of the fundamental questions of most spiritual traditions. In Zen there's a question, what were you before your parents were born? Or in the biblical tradition, the saying, before Adam was, I am. So this used to occupy me tremendously. What is this I? And here, this is this body, it's me. But then the question would not go to rest, would not go away. What body do I mean? Do I mean the body of remembering myself as a baby? And since my father was an avid photographer, there are pictures as far back as you could go. 1 day old. Even my pregnant mother, there I was inside. I was told. So which body am I when I say I am this body? The body of the baby, the toddler, the child, the teenager, the young woman, middle-aged, getting old. Which one? Because as we all know, now it is very public knowledge, the cells regenerate themselves with incredible speed. A new liver, a new kidney, new skin, new hair, ever so often, so that every 7 years at most we're all made over. So, which body am I? The latest? I'm the latest body. I don't want to be that latest body. That's where the whole identification question comes in. Which body am I identifying with? And this is where one runs into trouble. One is identified with a youthful body. And the conflict with seeing, at least if one looks into a mirror, not a youthful body, an aging body. I also used to think, what if I lost an arm or a leg or both? All limbs. I would think about it, picture it. Would I still say I am this body? Yes, I would. So I can't really quite be this body, because I would still identify with it, even if it was amputated, disfigured, getting old. I'm still saying I'm this body. So what body is it? Or is it no body at all, but an idea of a body? Or turning it around, an idea of an owner of this body who says it's mine. And going more with the ideas about this body, I found there are lots of ideas that I feel are mine. The idea of my brother, my sister, my family, husband. Anything I could imagine I felt was still part of me. Can we follow? Are we together on this? I imagine the house I live in, the house I lived in. I had to say, all of this is still me. It's my imagination, my thoughts, my images, my sensations. Of course, with emotions arising, anger, fear, happiness, joy. It's all mine. At least that's what thought does and says, and from which it reacts. And of course, they're not just the ideas of my family, house, my past, my whole history is all mine. I can think about it. I can think of the photos that were taken. The remembrances I have is all part of me, isn't it? Including what I imagine will happen or hope will happen to me in the future. That is also counted as me, because we say it's my future. What will my death be like, we say? How will I die? And thought tries to figure it out, because thought is always trying to establish some kind of certainty. There's a desire for certainty and security, and thought goes to work to figure it out, to establish it, to build a construct of fantasy, imagine something. All of it felt as mine, my possible future, my past as remembered. And of course, what does my past as remembered consist of? Can we look? what happened to me, what I was like before I came to this retreat last year when I had a real good time, or last time I had a real good time. Can one imagine it, remember it? Or last time I was hurt, when I was aching or in pain or sad. One can imagine it, can't one? And it's imagined by means of an image of myself, of what we call myself, a pictorial as well as ideational image. The idea of myself as being good or bad, and the image of myself. I can see my body, how I was dressed maybe, what I was doing when I was happy, taking a walk through the park. Memory provides memory images of myself ad infinitum. They may not all be very accurate, more or less accurate, because when one finds out in talking with people, someone who's a very beautiful person says, "I'm ugly. I hate my figure, I hate my face." Because of an image one has of oneself, maybe due to what one has been told or not been told, what the imagination says, comparison with others, I'm not as beautiful as she is. And also there is physiologically, or rather neurologically, such a phenomenon as a body image, which every healthy human being has functioning. It's functioning to coordinate and integrate muscular and other functions. So we know how to climb out of bed, how to stand upright, how to walk, how to reach for something and really hit it. Not hit it, but reach it. Meet the glass that we want to drink from. There's a very complex and of necessity functioning body image, of which we may not even be aware except when it does not function. There are some people who are afflicted with a degeneration of the body image. They can't climb out of bed anymore. Something new has to be learned, something new has to be built up by the brain to gauge distances and coordination of muscles and limbs. Apart from this very necessarily functioning body image, it is all built into this functioning organism. There are all these pictures and ideas of how good we are, how bad, how pretty, how ugly, how talented, or how untalented, how successful, how incompetent, unsuccessful. It's almost an endless series of images about ourselves. New ones emerging almost any moment that we've done something or said something. I did this well, I didn't do it. Didn't do it well. Someone else is doing it better and then feeling inferior. Particularly when we think about ourselves as an individual and individuality. We think of our capabilities. It's something that we don't want to hear, that we may not be an individuality because we are attached to it, to our specialty, attached to our talents, our achievements, and strangely enough also attached to our failures. Because even though one, it brings happy energies and the other negative energies, and yet in both cases, there is the fulfillment of the sense that I exist as something, as somebody, which thought, time and time again, picks up and dwells on and promotes, defends, as a very good test of attachment to image, to self-image, is the defensiveness with which we protect our image when we feel it is attacked or slighted, not respected, not dealt with what is felt to be appropriate. And we're hurt, and we either lash out verbally or directly, physically, in either defense or attack or withdrawal. The question which has come up in many meetings: why do we get hurt so deeply with all the feelings that are aroused? Doesn't that have to do with the image I have of myself? May not be aware of it, but that's what is smarting. How I want to be treated, or how I have been treated in the past. The humiliations we talked about yesterday, that we may have suffered very early in life, and maybe through childhood, adolescence, maybe yesterday. It all sort of resonates together like a whole orchestra at a moment of an insult or hurt now. And if we look discerningly, examine it, wonder about it, we may see clearer and clearer that there are self-images involved that want to be respected, to be accepted, to be maybe flattered, aggrandized, supported, acknowledged. Someone yesterday in a meeting said, I have this real problem with authority, and when you're sitting there in front of everybody, you become an authority to me. Whether I want it or not, it happens. What is that based on? This deep feeling of an authority sitting here, and me, the listener, as what? Look at it. What are you in this picture? What image is assigned by the brain to oneself? Because there is an image. Without images, there would only be listening and looking. Without resistance, without problem. Is what is being said so, or isn't it so? Or maybe I can't see it. But it need not be problematical. The problem arises when image arises about the person speaking and the person or persons listening. So right now, can one look, is there imagery of oneself as the not knower and the person who's talking as the knower? Images, or if you're not visual, like more idea-oriented, an idea of the knower and the idea of the me, the not knower, the ignorant one. Is it there? Look at it, catch it. By catching, I mean see it as it happens. It doesn't need to be altered. The seeing is the crucial thing. Because seeing is freeing. By seeing, I mean seeing, hearing, listening, being aware of imagery arising about myself right now and the person who is talking. In talking, as a body image, I can see without opening my eyes how I'm sitting here, that I'm speaking, but no attachment to an image as a knower or a teacher what the person said, this teacher-student relationship just doesn't let go of me. It affects our relationship if we see each other in certain terms, as knower and not knower, teacher and student, and then we can't directly look. Because with images go attitudes and expectations about oneself and each other, and not the freedom of discovering what's really happening. So right now, can one see that there are multitudes of images that the brain manufactures, produces about this organism? One of the images being that I am the owner of this organism, it's mine or it's me. Image is always interchangeable with idea. Some people are more visual, others more thought-oriented. Sometimes it's a combination of idea and picture, of what I am, what I was, and what I will be. Multitudes, not just one or two. Always needing to be something, to become something. A better person, a wiser person, an enlightened one. A secure one, a happy one, a wife, a husband, if one has none yet, or a divorced one, if one has one. Not always. I don't want to be cynical. I don't have that image. I have a very nice relationship with my husband. And what we have been calling identification or attachment to this image. We already said it manifests when it is attacked or slighted, then the hurt, the defensiveness or aggressiveness. To pay back in same coin, my image is attacked, I'll attack yours. We don't spell it out like this. It happens so quick, so automatically. Because it has always happened like this for generations and generations. In the Bible encoded an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, a hurt for a hurt. If we could, this moment, listen. Is it possible to listen without imagery? Just the sound of fan, breathing, listening to someone saying words. Physical sensations, hands, bottom, back, neck, face. Is the face wrinkled? Tension around the mouth, nose, eyes. To feel that. Not it shouldn't be, just to be aware of it. And birds singing. Cool air streaming. Right now, if somebody called you or me by a name or gave you the finger, it's been mentioned twice in this retreat, you're laughing. Would you be hurt right now in listening openly? Because in listening openly, the energy is not pumping up this image and settling in it and holding on to it and defending it. It's just freely there to listen, to be as nothing known. Because if I don't think about myself right now, I don't know what I am. It's just whoosh. and coolness and tweet and breathing. You can call me anything. Give me any finger you want to. I don't even have my eyes open. But even if I had, hello, how are you? That's the difference between energy circulating like wild in this network of me, what I have to be, what I have to become, what I have to protect, what I have to get, what I have to get away from. This is this network of me images and memories and anticipations with its fears and desires and fears. And there's another way for energy to operate, that is to gather in being here as nothing, just listening openly without knowing. But a thought arising, I can't get it, the others are getting it, whatever the thought may be, which was mentioned quite a number of times by people after having a moment of clarity or openness or spontaneity, then afterwards thoughts saying, oh, you just made this up, or you deceived yourself. Was this really true? Was this really openness? The doubt is not open. The doubt is doubting and bringing in thought and imagination. By which I'm not saying not to doubt. Doubt can be very helpful because we do deceive ourselves, or thought deceives without knowing it is doing it. There can be a bright imagination of clarity, and it's not clarity, it is the clarity of imagination, imagined light. And that will be defended if somebody attacks it or questions it. Or another thought arising will attack it. So where are we right now? What are we right now? All of our accumulated images and their networking, or the freedom of listening without images? That this body exists there's no denial of it. It's there. It's feelable. It's palpable. It hurts when a pin is stuck into it. And it changes. And it's unfathomable in its functioning. We think we know it, but we know maybe 1% about it. And experiencing, we do very little. We don't experience most of the time what happens to the food after it's been chewed and swallowed. Maybe the stomach feels too full. We feel some of our digestion and elimination, but we don't feel all this intricate distribution of nutrients and oxygen and the disposal of the waste materials and the functioning of the immune system. Who's aware of that? It's not possible. And it's going on. Who's doing it? How about this owner that I believe myself to be? Am I in charge of this? Am I doing it? Or is this body functioning in a very mysterious way, together with air and light and moisture and nutrients and sunlight? Without any of this, it could not exist for very long at all. And so it is for any organism, not just for this one here, sitting here. Even though no two organisms are totally, completely alike, the function is very similar unless there's dysfunction. But dysfunctions often are also similar. Where do we come from? We mentioned, I don't know whether it's in a group or in a talk, the getting together of sperm and egg. Is this where I feel I started? Would it be me? I can think that way and talk myself into it. But where did this wiggly little cell come from? And the egg? How did they know how to get together? There's an incredible movie existing of some Scandinavian photographer who internally photographed a veritable odyssey of sperms, millions of them seeking out one egg, dying by the wayside by the thousands, one of them making it or maybe not making it. This is going on. And there's other things going on within each cell, within each molecule, within each atom. Vast spaces with tiny particles, which are not even particles. What are they? The physicists don't know whether it's particle or wave, because it behaves one way sometime and another way at another time. And this is what we are made of, as well as the stones and the stars. The grasses, leaves, and the chipmunk. Digging in the basil. That's the chipmunk digging there. We saw it this morning, throwing the dirt around. I don't know what it's looking for. Maybe it hid a few nuts in there. Does it have a me? A self? A chipmunk self? It doesn't think about it. That's why it is unself-conscious. That's why we love watching animals in nature with their, what we call, naturalness, spontaneity, which makes for a grace of movement and a grace of stopping and watching. Every pore of the body of a deer, watching attentively. Sometimes one can stand 10 minutes eye to eye, none of us moving. But we can think, oh, I'm watching this deer. Aren't I fortunate to be able to watch this deer? And with that comes self-consciousness. And very often with self-consciousness, a clumsiness, loss of grace, because we don't know how to move, because we feel so exposed, so watched, so critically watched. Very often by an imagined audience. May not even be real, but our audience can be imagined, so that we see ourselves on a stage, watched, applauded, or rejected, all taking place in an internal video. It has no relationship to reality, and yet deeply affected by it. Somebody asked me this very early in the retreat, what is self-consciousness? That's what it is, seeing oneself in an internal video, an imagination, thinking about oneself. Am I good? Am I bad? Am I doing things right? And these thoughts affect our emotions and the motions of the body. That's why little children who are not self-conscious yet move like little animals with great ease and grace. That's why we're so attracted to watching them. Watching something we have lost. And they will also lose by beginning to think about themselves in terms of good and bad, cute and not so cute, ignored. Now, when our grandson, who was a very cute child, of course, I'll say that. And then 6 years later, a sister was born. And of course everybody, oh, isn't she cute? Look how cute she is. Isn't it cute? When going to the doctor with the 2 children, everybody would address themselves and hover over this little girl. And Ben said, why doesn't anybody say, I am cute? So, an image is formed, or an idea, and also a relationship to the sister who has got something he doesn't have, or he had and lost. Can we get a real feel? Well, we know it, we experience it, how we suffer from this imagery that is so automatically cranked out by the brain and connected with emotions and sensations throughout the body, creating fears of not being accepted, of being rejected as I know myself to be, due to what I've heard about myself and made up in addition. And then the question which has been asked, and I asked it myself years ago, is it ever possible to take one step without being self-conscious? And it seemed, the answer was no, it will be impossible. At that time I didn't understand all what makes for self-consciousness, because the observation was not, how do you say, acute or discerning enough. It was still fixed on outside things, concentrating on breathing or whatever, koans, rather than discerning what makes for self-consciousness. This moment of thinking about myself in habitual terms. And it is indeed possible, as we were experimenting with a while ago, for this thinking about myself to abate in quiet listening. The energy gathering here, now, being as no one or nothing to be described or known or imaged or imagined. Just walking, listening, breathing, sitting, singing, birds. The body image is there, but there's no thought around it, no evaluation of it, no rejection or approval, no imagined audience. Just being, quietly. All ears, all eyes. But not trying to see something or hear something, but a simple, open awareness. When everything is free to come and go, as it will. Ka. So, am I this body? Am I my imagery? Am I what I know? What I fear, what I desire? What I think about myself? Is that what I am? Or am I truly none of that? What am I? Right now. All of that? None of that? Does one have to know? Or is it just the fan blowing? We will end here for today.